You are now listening to the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface-level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind-the-scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.
Once upon a time, in a podcast near you, it was the month of March, which means it is time to announce a new title from Deaf Crocodile. And here with me, as usual, Mr. Craig Rogers and Dennis Bartok. Welcome, gents.
Howdy, howdy. Great to be back, Ryan.
How you doing?
I'm okay. Based on your headline today, how are you feeling, Craig? You all right, buddy? You need a hug?
Yeah, I'm fine. He's you don't see it, but my what is this? It's not Zoom. Whatever the
StreamYard,
our recording platform. Your
Yes.
name right now is Cranky Old Bastard.
It just seemed accurate.
which makes me laugh every time I look at it. Cranky old bastard. C-O-B.
Well, it has been a month. We've had a lot of stuff happening worldwide. We've had a lot of stuff happening internally with Deaf Crocodile. We've had a lot of stuff happening on social media. Tons of stuff to cover, including, for many people, this will be the first time they hear about the entire lineup for our release this month. One release, and it is a box set of fairy tale films. So let's start breaking into everything. Dennis, first off, what's new? What do you want to talk about first? You always have funny anecdotes, things that have been new for you.
Well, it has been a insane month in world affairs. I would like to say first and foremost that our hearts go out to all of the people in Iran and worldwide who are now impacted by the terrible hostilities that are going on. We actually have filmmaker friends. I'm not going to mention who they are in case that would put them in any peril, but we do have some dear filmmaker friends who are in Iran, in Tehran right now, which is being bombed. So our thoughts and prayers go out to them, their friends and family and everyone there. I will say war, conflict, wherever it happens, is really heartbreaking. We have released films from all over, including a number of films from Iran, from some wonderful filmmakers. And so this is just heartbreaking to see the news unfolding every day.
It's true. Lots of stuff happening, lots of people in danger, lots of people literally losing their lives. And it's always tough to talk about art and cinema around it, but the reality is all of art is political, and no matter if you think it's political or not, there are stories buried within these things, and it always helps to dive further than that surface level to learn more about them. And thankfully, you guys do plenty on your discs to talk about context and politics behind them. And of course, there's no politics found around DEFA or any cinema around that time, right?
Well, that's a great segue into talking about DEFA fairy tale films, which were one of the most popular genres or subgenres of movies that the East German state-run DEFA studios put out beginning in the early 1950s and then running really through the late 70s, early 80s is when the Märchenfilme, which is what the subgenre was known as in German, kind of ran its course. And really the heyday for the Märchenfilme was really the 60s and the early 70s, which is kind of what we're concentrating on with this box set. And these films were originally aimed mostly at a kids audience, or we would say a family friendly audience in the kind of Disney Pixar terminology. But when you look at them now, it's like David Lynch was making movies behind the Iron Curtain in East Germany. I mean, there's so much wonderfully strange and surreal stuff going on in them. It was hard to narrow it down to 5 films. There's about 45 or so Märchenfilme. Very few of them have previously been released on Blu-ray or DVD, so we tried to concentrate on ones that weren't previously available. The earliest one in our set is Sneewittchen, Snow White, from 1961. It's directed by Gottfried Kolditz, who will be a familiar name to fans of Deaf Crocodile because last year, in the spring, early summer, we released a double feature of 2 wonderful space operas that he directed in the 1970s, Signals, A Space Adventure, and In the Dust of the Stars. And his version of Snow White is beautifully done, live action. In many ways, it's more faithful to the original Brothers Grimm story than the famous Disney version. It stars Doris Vico as the title character, Snow White. She's really wonderful. She didn't do a lot of films, but this is by far her most famous. And this was a major hit for DEFA, both in theaters and then, like all of these films, it had a long, long life in TV. So generations and generations of kids in East Germany grew up watching these movies. The second film is Rotkäppchen, Little Red Riding Hood, by Getz Friedrich. And Little Red Riding Hood is by far one of the weirdest, the most demented films in the whole set. The big bad wolf basically looks like an American werewolf in East Germany. He's this really mangy looking wolf who kind of howls Rotkäppchen, Rotkäppchen throughout the film. There's a little boy who is costumed as a bunny rabbit, we think, but it's very strange and disturbing. He's hopping around the entire film. Everything in it is just demented, and it's really wonderful. Then the third film, Mother Hulda, is the English translation, but would be better known to a German-speaking audience as Frau Holle. And Frau Holle is a very famous kind of fairy tale, folk tale in German-speaking countries. It's about 2 young women, one named Pechmarie, who is sort of lazy and always complaining, and the other, of course, is Goldmarie, who is virtuous and hardworking. And Goldmarie falls into a well, like Lidsville. So anyone who has watched Sid and Marty Krofft TV shows will know the vibe. Lidsville, he falls into a hat. In Frau Holle, she falls into a well and winds up in this topsy-turvy world where basically everything sings. The flowers sing and the bread in the oven sing. Everything is singing. And she meets Frau Holle, who is this kindly old grandmother figure, kind of magical grandmother, who can turn the feathers from a feather pillow into snow falling on a village and all sorts of great stuff. And it looks like Pee-wee's Playhouse. It's very highly stylized and artificial in a really brilliant way. That also was directed by Gottfried Kolditz, who did the first film in the set, Snow White. So these are actually the third and fourth films by Kolditz. And we were very fortunate to have his son, Stefan, who is a noted screenwriter, contribute another interview talking about his father, about the making of these films, his father's career, specifically because he directed several other Märchenfilme, fairy tale films at DEFA as well. So that's a really wonderful bonus essay or interview in the booklet. The fourth film is The Devil's Three Golden Hairs, directed by Egon Schlegel. And this also is a kind of insane, kind of Terry Gilliam meets Princess Bride meets Sid and Marty Krofft, kind of fantasy fairy tale comedy about a young man who, trying to win the hand of a beautiful princess, has to literally go into the devil's underground lair and pretend to be his wife because the devil has poor eyesight. And the devil's underground lair is just incredible. It's got shrunken heads on his pipe organ and all of this kind of grotesque sort of like Halloween-esque decor. And then the final film, which we're just announcing, we actually have had a little contest, is Schneeweißchen und Rosenrot, Snow White and Rose Red, directed by Siegfried Hartmann. And even though it has Snow White in the title, like the first film in the collection, it's a completely different Snow White. Same name, different characters entirely. Not just played by different performers, but in the fairy tale world or kingdom, these are different Snow Whites. And in this one, Snow White and Rose Red are two beautiful peasant girls who fall in love with two handsome princes. The princes are transformed by a vengeful mountain spirit into a bear and a falcon. And the women, Snow White and Rose Red, have to figure out how to free them and transform them back into their human selves so they can all live happily ever after. So like a number of these films, it actually has a kind of hidden feminist agenda in this. The handsome princes, in fact, are kind of sidelined for much of the film, and the protagonists are clearly Snow White and Rose Red. Something to mention is, of course, that all these films were made while East Germany was under, Soviet communist control. And so there is a lot of kind of sturdy socialist moralizing that underpins the fairy tale action in the films, which is, of course, one of the things that makes them really fascinating now, is they're both entertainment, but there is a socio-political message to a lot of these films. And we have some wonderful commentaries and essays that tease out a lot of these elements as well. So there's a lot to unpack, but I will say they are just phenomenally entertaining. Just on a visual level, in terms of costume design, the performances, the music, there's tons of dance, and there's some really insane costumes. I think everyone will find these really a true delight, and also kind of one of the great little hidden corners of fantasy filmmaking that has still been off the radar for many, many people, especially here in the U.S.
And those last two films, the Devil with the Three Golden Hairs and Snow White and Rose Red, they're the two later ones from 77 and 79. And I don't know if their budgets went up or what happened, but the cinematography and everything is like ratcheted up. Those two films are actually really beautiful. There's some amazing cinematography in both of them.
The textures in all of these are crazy. The production design, everything is so tangible and gorgeous, and like what all of us that look at modern films and just miss everything about those really well physical attributes that are everything from back then is just so much, I don't know, more appealing to the eye for many of us. These are incredible to look at. Because of that, there's a lot of things that lead to design choices that are interesting, creepy, surrealist in these things. Who was the audience for these films, Dennis?
The audience was really young kids, and their parents, because the parents are the ones who are going to take them, whether they dropped them off the theater or sat through the movies with them. So in the end of the day, the parents are the one who are taking the kids. So they say, "Oh, the film is aimed at a kids' audience." That's true, because the kids are the ones who say, "Hey, I want to see Finding Nemo. I want to see ... But it's the parents who are actually taking them to see it. These were aimed squarely at a children's audience, and many of them were adapted from famous fairy tales. In fact, the Brothers Grimm were kind of the wellspring for many of the DEFA American film, and there were some other famous fairy tale authors whose work was adapted, but Brothers Grimm far and away were the most popular. So one of the interesting things is that some of these stories were adapted around the same time, or maybe a few years earlier, in West Germany. So, of course, there are other versions of like Frohola and some of these other stories that were made on the other side of the wall. But these are specifically the East German ones. So, for people who want to do some digging, you can actually go out there and track down the West German versions. Some of those were actually acquired and distributed here. And one of my favorite things is always to talk with a film historian and legendary comics artist Stephen Bissett. And this is the kind of thing that Steve loves to talk about, because you went to see a lot of these types of fairy tale fantasy films, not these in particular, because being East German productions, they didn't get distributed widely. I think a couple of them were actually seen in West Germany at the time, if they were really popular, but I don't think any of them were available here in the US, whereas some of the West German fairy tale films were picked up and dubbed and are really bizarre. So when I spoke with Steve Bissett, and there's a long video interview, he brought out a lot of his posters and lobby cards and press books, and even I think a soundtrack album that's connected to these fairy tale films. So they didn't happen in isolation. Of course, there was a lot of this type of fantasy fairy tale filmmaking going on around the world, in the US, in Mexico, in England, and all sorts of different countries. So there's kind of a wonderful, again, wellspring of these types of movies. And we've sort of just scratched the surface, both with the DEFA films, and there's a lot of incredible fantasy fairy tale films from Russia from the 50s and 60s that Alexander Rowe's work in particular would be amazing. We've released some of them kind of in a related field by Alexander Petrushko, like Ruslan and Ludmilla and The Tale of Tsar Sultan. And some of the animated films we've put out, like The Snow Queen by Lev Atamanov, are part of this fairy tale genre of filmmaking. So these do connect in a way to some of the other releases that we've been putting out over the past couple of years.
Yeah, this is just a growing collection of things that you don't see many other companies even not even just focusing on these types of films, but these sources for films. And as somebody with their ear to the ground every day, I hear people appreciating Deaf Crocodile specifically for that. So as their voice, thank you so much for rescuing these. Craig, why don't we talk about the art on this one? It would help a lot if you were unmuted.
If I unmuted, that helps.
I am going to leave that in there, by the way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sure you probably heard my laundry go off earlier too.
we were all wondering if
was that yours?
Close.
Yeah, I wasn't muted then.
Was that yours?
Yes. So anyone that has an LG dryer knows that sound. What were we talking about? Artwork.
The artwork.
The limited edition is pretty much as soon as we decided we were going to put together this fairy tale set, there was only one person in mind. And I reached out thinking the chances were slim, but I'll ask. And he shockingly said, yeah, I can do that. So if you're a comic book nerd and you like fairy tales, then you probably know the Fables series that was put out by DC very well. And Mark Buckingham, who did all of the incredible artwork with I think every cover for that series, did the cover for us. He did a watercolor painting featuring all the fairy tales characters from this set, and it's amazing. I'm super excited that he was able to do it. So, and then the disc inside, of course, has Beth's great work as well, and pulling imagery from the films and putting together a beautiful cover for the disc itself. So yeah, very happy with how this turned out looking. It's going to look great.
Cannot wait. Let's get into some more of the extras here because, for example, the Stephen R. Bissett interview. I don't remember the exact length on this one, but this is not just a normal interview. This is I think it was just over an hour long. Does that sound right?
Might have been a little longer because whenever I start talking with Steve, it's just amazing. He has such a vast, depth of knowledge and all of the ephemera that he's also collected. I have to say, great editing by someone who may actually be on this conversation right now, Ryan.
Yeah,
Verrill.
You did great on that thing, Craig. Good job.
It wasn't me.
It was Ryan Verrill who did it.
It's an hour. It's an hour and 35 minutes.
That's right.
Short conversation.
Yeah, and it's not an interview. It's a conversation. That's just two film nerds nerding out over fairy tale movies. It's like fascinating to listen to.
Yeah, it's very well done. It's a deep dive. It is two people that know much more about this topic than many others. Fascinating to listen to while editing. Yeah, everybody needs to hear it because Bissett, God, he knows so much.
We have a great
crazy.
We have a great visual essay by film historian Evan Chester, who has been contributing amazing visual essays to a number of our recent releases called Socialist Fantasies, the Brothers Grimm and DEFA Studios, Fairy Tale Filmmaking in East Germany, where he gets into some of the source fairy tales, the stories that these films were adapted from, which I think is really fascinating. We have commentary tracks on the films by Sam Deegan, who does two of the movies. We love Sam's work, by Sheila Rowan Legg and Anne Golden, and by Michael Brook in England. So we're very excited to have them contributing. And then we have a jam-packed 80-page book because we had 5 films and so many wonderful essays. So in addition to the interview that I mentioned before with Stefan Kolditz, who's the son of director Gottfried Kolditz, who also shared some wonderful, rare production images of his father during the filming of Snow White and Mother Hulda. We have essays by Professor Kinna Shen. And Professor Shen actually has written an entire really amazing book called The Politics of Magic, DEFA Fairy Tale Films. And when we knew we were going to do this set working with the DEFA Film Library at the University of Massachusetts Amherst again, who we collaborated with on the double feature release of Signals, A Space Adventure and In the Dust of the Stars, they had mentioned Professor Shen's book. And so one of the first things we did was reach out to her and said, hey, would you like to write an essay? Since you're the resident expert on DEFA fairy tale films. We have another incredibly detailed, exhaustively researched essay on each of the films by Rolf Giesen in Germany, who is kind of the dean, the godfather of German film historians over there. We have two wonderful essays by Walter Chaw, who contributes to all of our releases, and from Alexandra Heller-Nicholas, who has contributed to several of our releases so far as well. So I highly encourage people to read those essays and listen to the commentaries, because they give a tremendous amount of information about the context, the political, cultural context that these movies came out of. On the surface, again, they seem to be very simple, charming, kind of classic fairy tale stories, but they were made at a time of great turbulence and conflict between the East and the West, between the Soviet countries and Europe and the United States. And that can't help but inform the images that we're seeing on screen. So I think that the essays delve into a lot of that, which is fantastic.
It is really nice, speaking with a little bit of bias, to see Sam Deegan back. She had been MIA from Deaf Crocodile commentaries for a while, so nice to see her back in the stable.
Yes, we are constantly bombarding poor Sam with requests, and I know she's so busy working on other projects that we were very lucky when she agreed to do two of the films. I think they really caught her fancy. So, because she had contributed to a lot of our earliest releases, and then she's just been so busy, we literally have not been able to line her up for any. We're of course hoping that she'll be back to do some more in the near future.
Indeed. And then Rolf, always great. This is just a hell of a package, and it's been fun because we've been leading up to it on social media. Chris has been doing a great job of teasing everybody with images, and then the whole mystery of the fifth title finally being revealed has been fun to see all of the guesses come in.
It has been, and I don't know if anyone has correctly guessed it, because we record this a few days before it appears. As of today, I don't know if anyone has correctly guessed that the fifth film is Snow White and Rose Red. The one that everyone seems to be guessing is The Singing, Ringing Tree, which was ironically like the sixth film on our wish list. So if we had decided to do 6 films instead of 5, we would have included The Singing, Ringing Tree, because it is quite wonderful. It was released, I think, in the UK previously by Network, who are sadly, I think, no longer around. They were a home video label in the UK that put out a lot of amazing material. And I think it's now out of print, but I think it was released over there. And it's really wacky. That's the one that everybody has been guessing. So far, I don't think anyone has guessed Snow White and Rose Red. Probably because we'd already announced that we have a completely different, again, these are different Snow Whites. Like, again, not just the actors, portraying Snow White, but the character of Snow White in the first film and the last film are totally different characters. Just kind of bonkers that they could have come up with a slightly different, almost Snow White or slightly Snow White or Snow White 2.0. No.
Snow Off-White?
Snow Off-White. Even better. No. Snow White, which definitely leads to some confusion. But so far, I don't think anyone has guessed this one. Heart of Stone, which was the first of the DEFA Märchenfilme, which was released, I think, last year by Eureka. It's also quite good. It's very good. And we might have included it, but it's already out on Blu-ray, and we didn't want to kind of repeat that for an audience here. So we thought, let's try and pick films that have not come out previously on Blu-ray. And there's so much. I mean, honestly, if this box set does well, there's another almost 40 Märchenfilme from DEFA alone, plus all of the West German ones. So there's a lot more to be mined out there in this crazy fairy tale world.
Whew. Interesting. Let's see, Craig, you've not said much about these. How do you feel about these titles?
They're a lot of fun. Like when I was looking at them, I prefer the later ones than the earlier ones, but particularly Snow White and Rose Red is just very good. Like I said, both of those last two, the Devil's Three Golden Hairs and Snow White and Rose Red,
yeah.
I just gravitated towards those personally, and just I guess I'm just more into the visuals. So like I said, the cinematography in those and set design and costumes, just really kind of incredible. Snow White and Rose Red in particular, most of it is shot on locations, out in the forest. It's just gorgeous settings. You don't need to be a great photographer if you just point a camera at something that's already beautiful. And they did a lot of that in that film.
Yeah, that is true. Anything else on the DEFA fairy tales that we have missed?
If you're a fan of Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters, you will, I think, really appreciate the last one, Snow White and Rose Red. I even say in my description that it would make a good double bill because they have a similar kind of tone. And I will say Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters is a guilty pleasure of mine. It's a lot of fun. It's a really goofy, kind of fantasy, witchy, Hansel and Gretel-y kind of action film that I'm not quite sure what the target audience was for that because it is an action fairy tale movie. It was sort of like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. These are two great tastes that may not taste great together. But I do like Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters, and it is a guilty pleasure. And I think it would go well with Snow White and Rose Red. So,
well, and before we go on to some other things coming up for the company, we should say, too, that this is probably the last month with a single release for at least for quite some time. On the set schedule, there's not really another month coming up with only one release in a month. So even though this is 5 films, this is the last month where there's probably only going to be one pre-order for quite some time.
Yes, indeed. I will tease without revealing anything that we do have another.
Craig, put the dagger down. It'll be okay.
God, poor Craig. It's always like, you're giving away the plot. You're telling them too much. We do have another box set coming with DEFA before the end of the year. Completely different kinds of films that we're equally excited about. It also shows just the depth and range of the DEFA library. They produced hundreds and hundreds of movies, while East Germany was part of the Soviet Union. So we're going to be putting out another remarkable set. We've been lining up essay writers and commentators. Again, completely different
this is
style and tone. Could not be like 180 degrees. But and I know Ryan and Dr. Will Dodson are very excited to contribute a visual essay for that one.
This is one I've been looking forward to for the last, 7 or 8 months.
It's a big one for a multitude of reasons. It's funny when Dennis first said we got another box set coming. I'm like, we do? I'm like, oh right.
And
it's hard to keep track of everything we're working on.
And it's DEFA films. Yeah.
But yeah, that's a little ways down the road, but that is a very important release. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah. As is this. I think for us, it's always amazing to shine a light on aspects of world cinema that may have somehow slipped through the cracks undeservedly. And I think these films in particular, we love, we sort of always describe Deaf Crocodile as kind of sitting at the intersection of art house and genre filmmaking. These are definitely genre films, but they're very highly stylized. I mean, Frau Holle, Mother Hulda, is about as stylized as you will ever see in a feature film for kids. It really is like Pee-wee's Playhouse time or H.R. Puffin's stuff. I think kids' TV is kind of the only place you can go to find sets that are so artificial, and the entire performance style is really incredibly heightened and artificial. But these are, again, I think they're really fascinating movies, both very entertaining and also really interesting to see what was happening. Like, Craig is a few years younger than I am, but we both grew up during when the Cold War was still kind of, talked about daily in the news, the U.S. and Russia. And to see the wide range and variety of films that were being made. And we've released films from Romania, from Hungary, from Czechia, from all sorts of, of different parts of what was the Soviet Union at the time, and to see the incredible creativity and artistry that was being made by filmmakers and artists who were working under often very repressive regimes and conditions is always really fascinating, because I think and many people before have said this, that because they couldn't say things explicitly, things are said implicitly or through metaphor that are often even more powerful than saying it up front or explicitly. And I think you see a lot of that in these films in particular. So
interesting. Yeah, lots going on, and lots more going on behind the scenes, prepping for a ton of releases still. And what we also need is more space on the shelves for stuff to come in. So there is launching, if you're listening to this on the day that the episode comes out, launching tomorrow, a flash sale happening on titles. Let's go into some details on that. Mr. Craig, what can you tell us? What will be on sale? What kind of prices can we hope for? What should people purchase immediately?
Almost
Other
everything.
Than everything.
Almost everything will be on sale. It'll be similar to our last sale we had, except this time we're also including sale on the limited edition, deluxe editions, which we've never put on sale before. Some of those are getting low in stock, so those will go probably very quickly, and once they're gone, they're gone. So hopefully you're hearing this and you get a jump on the first day of the sale, because a lot of those deluxe editions will probably sell out that first day, and those won't be coming back. So yeah, like I said, almost everything is going to be on sale, except the newest releases. So anything from like 2025 and back will be on sale.
And we still have some deluxes for even 2024 releases. So if there's anyone out there who's like, oh, I was waiting to pick up, now is a good chance to get these deluxe editions with the booklet and the slipcase, because those won't be reprinted.
Yeah, there's quite a few titles there's under 100 left. So putting them on sale, those will be gone.
Yeah. This is a rare chance is probably the best way to say it. Not trying to introduce FOMO or anything to it, but to get something like this that is at a pretty nice discount and something that you're able to pick up that you might have, resigned to the fact that you won't be able to get it. This is the last time, so don't resign to the fact that you've already missed it if there's still an opportunity.
Should point out that we're having this sale, and when we're having this sale is anyone who's ordered from us recently knows there's been lots of delays getting product out because we moved all of our product from one warehouse in New Jersey all the way to Illinois, and that process took longer and was messier than we anticipated. Never done that before. Not looking forward to ever doing it again. But the move is done. Everything is in the new warehouse, and orders are going out as quick as we can possibly get them out. We will be caught up by the time the sale starts. So sale orders should go out nice and quick, as you'd expect. If just a caveat, if you add a pre-sale item to your sale items, they will all ship together when the pre-sale item ships. So please don't pre-order something, order sale items, and expect them to ship in 2 to 3 days, because that won't happen. They all ship together. So you need to place 2 separate orders, or just be patient and get it when the pre-sale items ship.
Yeah, and this should be familiar to anyone who's ordered from like Orbit or Diabolic or other
most
online. They will
places
say if you are ordering something that's in stock now and a pre-order, your order won't ship until the pre-order arrives. So this should be familiar. So if you want to get your sale items right away, just order those and then come back in and place a second order for the pre-sale, like the DEFA Fairy Tale set, which will be going on sale
the day before.
When this drops. The day before. So we're probably going to be getting a lot of people, because I know there's a lot of excitement out there for this set in particular. So,
and we'll send out a notification about the sale, but on that same day that the sale starts, we're also going to be putting a bunch of new fun merch and other items onto the site that have never been there before. So we're going to have a set of Romero pins. Not pins, stickers. Featuring all the different varieties of Romero we've had. So we've got like the DEFA sci-fi space Romero. We got the Dead Crocodile Romero. We get the standard Romero, and then there's a new one. I don't want to spoil. That no one's seen yet, but that will also be out there. Got a graphic novel related to one of our films that'll be coming out. A soundtrack to that same film. It's already been available elsewhere, but we'll be having the Solomon King soundtrack both on vinyl and CD that'll be available. So a bunch of fun stuff will be hitting the shop that same day. One of the things I'm kind of excited about is we've got Romero temporary tattoos that I'm kind of keen to check out myself. I don't have any tattoos, but a temporary one with Romero might be kind of fun.
Well, and I don't think, have we talked about the Solomon King soundtrack much?
No. That's
true. This is super exciting.
I mean, it's something we wanted to put out when the film came out. Like, it's been gestating that long.
Yeah.
So it is pretty exciting that it's out there in the world now. It's how we discovered the film. Dennis went to a record store and was like, "Hey, what's this?"
So the original release was on the producer, co-director, lead actor, writer Sal Watts. He was the visionary that was behind Solomon King. Was on his own label, which was called Sal Wah, from the first letters of his first and last name. And as we've talked about before, Sal was he was sort of like the Berry Gordy of Oakland in the 70s, where he had his own record label. He made a movie. He owned a string of incredible Mr. Sal's Black Urban Fashion stores in the Bay Area. He had restaurants. He executive produced a local public TV program that featured Oakland area soul funk musicians and street dance groups, hosted by Jay Payton, who was a well-known DJ and impresario in San Francisco, Oakland area. So he did all these amazing things. And we discovered Solomon King through the soundtrack. I found a copy of it at Record Surplus, a wonderful used vinyl store for anyone in the LA area on the west side. And that's what actually led us to meeting Belinda Burton Watts, Sal's wife, and who represents the estate, and working with her, UCLA Archive, to rescue what had been a lost film for many years. So it was always in our mind, hey, we would love to see the soundtrack re-released, but we're not in the business of pressing vinyl ourselves, and it's all we can do, Craig and I, to keep up with the home video and digital and theatrical releases we're doing. So we were connected by my great friend Pat Thomas, who I would give a big shout out to, who has written amazing books on Ernie Kovacs and Allen Ginsberg. And amazing book came out about a decade ago called Listen Whitey, which is the connection between the Black Power movement in the 60s and soul, funk, and jazz music. It's really essential reading for anyone who's interested in music and kind of politics of that period. And he connected us with the owner of Real Gone Music, which is a fantastic reissue label, does a lot of soundtracks, spiritual jazz, all sorts of like rare Halloween records, a lot of great stuff. And so Real Gone has put out a really beautiful vinyl and CD reissue. The CD actually has a few more tracks. But both the vinyl and the CD, which we'll have for sale in our store, have additional tracks that were released by Sal Watts on 45 that are connected to Solomon King, but for some unknown reason were not included in the original vinyl album in 1974. And the most glaring is there's a song called Sister Sheila, which is performed by a local Oakland group called Papa's Results, and it's fantastic. It's by far the most recognizable song from Solomon King. It's, I think, repeated 3 times, including a live performance of it. I think they do it in a club scene. They didn't include it on the soundtrack album. I have no idea why it's not on there, but it is now. So both the vinyl and the CD have Sister Sheila, which is fantastic, along with a couple other really fantastic soul funk numbers related to the movie. So we're super glad. Again, this has also been done in connection with Sal Watts' estate and with Belinda Burton Watts. So I would like to point out that everyone who has watched Solomon King is going to buy the soundtrack. There is revenue that is going to the filmmaker's family, to the filmmaker's estate. I think that's super important. We want to make sure that the artists and filmmakers are fairly and equitably compensated and have involvement with all of our releases. So we really go to great lengths to make sure that they are involved and fairly treated. And we've also gotten to become great friends with Belinda. Is really one of the great blessings of our work with Deaf Crocodile, is getting to know and become friends with Belinda. We just can't say enough great things about her. Love her so much. So I hope everyone will. It's limited. We don't have a lot of copies of Solomon King on vinyl or CD in our store. So we encourage everyone, if you love the movie, if you love 70s soul funk music, this is great. It is like Curtis Mayfield level great.
Yeah, it is. It's really amazing, and I think the original vinyl only had 6 tracks. Our vinyl has 3 bonus tracks. That's all that could fit on the vinyl, and then the CD has another 3. So you get 6 extra tracks on the CD. There's Sister Sheila. There's an instrumental version of Sister Sheila. There's just a number of really great tracks that just, for whatever reason, got released as a 45 through Salwa, but they weren't included on the soundtrack, which is just kind of a little weird. But now, as far as we know, all of the tracks are now available either on vinyl or the CD to get everything. And yeah, they were all remastered by Audio Mechanics. So yeah, it's very exciting that this music is readily available for folks now. Because yeah, when Dennis first told me about it, he's like, "Oh, I found this record," and he found I think it was a YouTube clip that had just the theme music on it, and I instantly was like, "Oh well, shit!" Like that music alone is so good. How like the movie must be amazing. Like
Yeah.
to have a score, have a theme that good. So yeah, Dennis and his amazing investigative skills tracked it down.
We had a lot of help. That was really hard because we didn't even know if Sal Watts was still alive. It turns out he died sadly in the early 2000s, long before we started work on this project. But we did get to connect, as I said, with his wife Belinda Burton Watts and with his family. I think Sal had something like 14 kids, and of course many grandkids and probably great grandkids at this point. Nieces and nephews, and they've all gotten to finally see and hear Sal's amazing creative work on the film, and now the soundtrack is being re-released. It is one of the great soul funk soundtracks of that period, so it's really wonderful. This is the first official reissue of it that's ever been done since it came out briefly in the early 70s. So that's really great news.
Jeez, I mean, literally rescuing things. That's why we love you guys. Speaking of rescuing things, probably a good time to bring up that before our next podcast recording, there will be a Kickstarter launching. Now, it's been a long time since the last Deaf Crocodile Kickstarter, so let's talk about this project a little bit. Craig, I think you were probably the best one to highlight what had to be done for this film.
Well, yeah, you're talking about Roy from Space, Roy Dell'Espacio. Very cool, completely lost and almost forgotten sci-fi animated film from Mexico. This is one of those weird projects that we ended up buying and licensing sight unseen because it literally doesn't exist in any format other than those film elements that were found in a archive vault. No VHS, no DVD, no Laserdisc, like nothing online. So we just bit the bullet and we're like, okay, we'll license it. We'll get those elements scanned and we'll restore it. And we'll get it back out there so people can see it. And then, so we were very excited when we got the hard drive with the scans. Had no idea what to expect. Started playing them, and Dennis very quickly noticed that they had cut in some live action footage from a Japanese sci-fi film without any sort of licensing agreement. So very illegally cut into the film. So we were kind of, at first we were like, well, shit, what are we going to do now? Like, we bought this film and we cannot release it like this. So we had a couple of different ideas. One was to like go the Grindhouse route and just cut those sections out and just put a card up that said like shot missing. Then we had an even crazier idea of, why don't we commission some animators to animate those scenes that were from the Japanese film in the style of the film itself, so they could kind of blend seamlessly in. And that's what we did, which is still kind of bonkers to me that we did that. But yeah, it turned out great. It looks amazing. The film elements, strangely enough, were in pretty good shape because they were never really used. They made a couple of prints when it first came out. It played for about a week, and then those negatives just sat in a vault ever since. So the negative's actually in pretty good condition. So the scans are beautiful. It's going to look amazing. We're still working on the restoration. It's, it's from the OCN, so it does still need some cleanup, and it's going to need color grading, and but it's going to look beautiful. It's going to have new animation that matches quite closely to the original source. They went through great pains to make sure that they created the new footage kind of in the same DIY style that the original film was made in. We got to visit them in their little studio while they were working, and we shot some footage, and we'll have a nice little like featurette on how they went about making the new animation. I mean, honestly, my favorite part of the whole thing was how they did zooms, and it was so clever. They had literally, they just had a table with a glass plate sitting on top of 4 little cups, and then they wanted to zoom in. I think it was zooming in or zooming out on a planet. So they had hand drawn the planet, and they set up a stack of like 10 Scrabble tiles, and they set the planet on it, and then they photographed it, and then they'd take one tile away at a time and then photograph it so the planet was getting further and further away by taking away each Scrabble tile. Like, that's how DIY it was. It's incredible.
I should go back a second and mention a little bit about what is Roy from Space. So it was the only feature that was directed by a man named Hector Lopez Carmona, who was a successful commercials and feature film titles animator in Mexico. And he worked with a couple producers. The best known was Ulysses Perez Aguirre, and it was his daughter, Andrea Perez Mata, that we've worked with to license the rights and got us access to the original negative, which was stored at the Cineteca Nacional. And this was only the third animated feature film, ever produced in Mexico. And it, as Craig said, played for about a week and then disappeared. So for 40 plus years, it has been considered a lost film. In fact, it was on the Wikipedia page of lost movies, although they've updated it to say, as of, I a few months ago, Deaf Crocodile announced that they have rescued the film and will be releasing it in the near future. So it has been considered one of the sort of most famous lost movies in Mexico for a while, with a number of people sort of dying to see this. It is really insane, kind of primitive outsider sci-fi animation. Anyone who saw our earlier release, Delta Space Mission, which is an incredible Romanian animated sci-fi film by Kalin Kazan and Mircea Toia, will really enjoy this as well. There were non-professional animators that were involved. That they were working on this for over 3 years. And from what we understand, at some point they brought in people who'd never animated before, because they were like trying to get this thing finished on a really shoestring budget. And sadly, it was the only animated feature that Hector Lopez Carmona ever got to make. He passed away a number of years ago, but we have been able to interview members of his family as well as the children of the producer of the film, and that will all be on the release later this year. So we're super excited. The Kickstarter will have, Craig, maybe you can talk about it. It will have a special slipcover that will only be available, as we've done before, for Kickstarter supporters.
Yeah, we're going to have a pin made, a Roy del Espacio pin will be available. The Kickstarter exclusive slipcover edition will be available. As before, you'll still be able to, if you want, like pre-order the regular release through the Kickstarter if you want. But the real key is the exclusive slipcover that'll only be available through the Kickstarter. So yeah, and Haley Buck, who has been doing our incredible Treasures of Soviet Animation deluxe edition cover artwork. She's going to be doing the artwork for the Kickstarter exclusive, so it will be beautiful.
Very nice. With the Kickstarter stuff, I know there's always a certain very vocal minority of people that don't like anybody doing Kickstarters for anything, frankly. But I think one thing that needs to be touched on is how little money is in this industry and how much restorations like this cost, and the discussion on why certain groups need to launch Kickstarters. A lot of people are not some of these giant companies, and just want to point out that groups like Deaf Crocodile need support for times like this. It's stuff where literally films are being rescued. I mean, Dennis literally just mentioned this was something from the Lost Films Wikipedia article, and it has been saved because of this joint project. And it's important to point out it is a big deal.
Yeah, restoration in general is always expensive, and this one had the additional costs of having to get new animation made. And a couple people, when they heard we first announced this, were like, "Well, you're going to release both versions, right? With the Japanese and footage in there?" I'm like, "No, that's literally the entire point. We cannot do that. We would be shut down very quickly." So no, you can't see that version. Not only would it probably be incredibly expensive if they were even willing to license it, but they probably wouldn't even be willing. They'd just be like, "No, you can't do that."
Yeah, we don't know why. We've tried to find out why they decided to cut in 4.5 minutes of footage from a completely unrelated film. We guess it's either because they ran out of time and money and needed to kind of slug this footage in to complete the film, or they wanted to give it more production value to make it look more expensive before it came out theatrically for a very brief period. So it could be a combination of the two. But
I mean, it was really rough footage too. Like it looks like a dupe of a dupe of a dupe of a used print. Like,
yeah, they probably just bought a print. Yeah, they stole a print or bought it from a projection booth and then just cut it into the film and used it as like stock footage. So.
And there is a couple of other shots in the film that are live action stock footage that we've left in.
Right.
But the stuff that was clearly from another feature film production, those had to be removed.
Yeah. And honestly, I think this version plays better because it's pretty much all animated apart from a couple of stock footage shots of like rocket, this kind of NASA type stock footage shots. So you're not pulled out of it by suddenly going from this sort of amazingly surreal outsider animation to live action sci-fi.
It was rather confusing and jarring. You're like, what the heck is this? Like,
and none of it is essential to the narrative. It's all like spaceships zooming and explosions and things blowing up.
Yeah, it's just little action sequences.
It's little action sequences. So the new animation, which totals about 4.5 minutes, so it's it's a fairly small percentage of the overall running time, but that's quite a bit of animation that Brian and Isabel had to do. So I'm hoping that Hector Lopez Carmona, if he were still with us, would approve and see this as actually a more coherent animated experience, because now pretty much the entire film with a handful of very brief stock footage shots is animated and in a similar style. And I think that's a much better way to experience Roy from Space, which I gotta say is really bonkers. It is, I told Craig before we had ever seen a frame of footage, I was like, it's called Roy from Space. We got to have this film. And it lives up to it. So,
I mean, it just occurred to me, I don't know if we ever were able to find out, but the reason it played for only like a week may be because it came out and someone was like, that's footage from another film. We can't do that.
Yeah.
No idea.
Early in the film, he says, I'm Roy from Space. I come from Earth. And to me, that says everything you need to know. Like, wait, are you from space? Or are you from Earth? Are you from Earth?
Yeah. Well,
it's fantastic.
That reminds me of my favorite thrilling adventure hour with Mark Evan Jackson as Sparks Nevada, who always proudly proclaims he's from Earth.
Yeah.
Marshall on Mars.
So, because this has been such an involved and expensive project, not only the scanning, the restoration, color grade, but now commissioning new analog cell-painted replacement footage, we are doing a Kickstarter because this has been an extraordinarily expensive project like Solomon King, like the restoration of that. We also did a successful Kickstarter for, and a couple others. So we're hoping that people will support it, get some really groovy, merch, extra Kickstarter rewards, and help us continue showing tender loving care and releasing these movies that, again, in this case, as with Solomon King, these films were utterly and completely lost. There are varying degrees of lost, mostly lost, almost lost, semi-lost. This is like Solomon King in the completely lost category, where it was like essentially in oblivion until we were able to locate the negative, the rights holder, and scan it. So we're really excited that people can finally see this. It'll be coming out in the late summer, early fall of this year.
I don't remember the first time we talked about this one, but just so everybody is aware of the timeline on all these things, this has been in the work for literally multiple years. It's been a little over 2 years. The original story, am I remembering right? Is this the Swap Meet title where you found part of it or something like that?
No, although that is a short Flash Gordon promotional.
That's right.
trailer that I found for the Buster Crab. There is a connection there because a lot of the kind of narrative and action in Roy from Space is clearly inspired, kind of cribbed from the 1930s Flash Gordon serials. No, this was actually, we have to give a huge shout out to a film scholar named Alejandro Vidal, who was essential in helping us connect with the rights holder, Andrea Perez Mata, and kind of kept kind of pushing and nudging and checking in with us every couple of months. And finally was instrumental in helping us close a deal with Andrea Perez Mata for the rights to the film and to scan it. So Alejandro was a huge help and has written an essay. He'd kind of been carrying the torch for this movie for several years, had written a lengthy essay in Spanish, which is now translated into English for the upcoming booklet. So, but this is a film, like if you Google it, you will find a number of different websites in English and in Spanish, people saying, God, I would love to see this. Where is Roy from Space? It's totally lost. And now it's not, which is great. At the end of the day, that people get to see Hector Lopez Carmona and his collaborators, all the other animators that contributed to this, get to see their work on the film. And that's what's most important, is to appreciate the creativity and artistry that was happening in Mexico in the early 80s when they were making this completely insane animated sci-fi film.
And now all of you can donate to the Kickstarter starting in early April, and you can help realize the project to its fullest. Gentlemen, anything else that we need to highlight, bring up, tease?
I think that's it. I will say, and I'm not going to give anything more away, but Craig just received a hard drive with brand new scans of a pretty much completely lost vampire film that we're working on restoring with the cooperation of the filmmaker. I'm only going to say that. It won't come out until next year, but we just received a drive with scans from the camera negative and audio transfer. It's very exciting.
It is incredible that you're going to put out that lost cut of Bram Stoker's Dracula. That's really cool.
Yep. Oh my God. Don't tease.
Yes. Dennis has an hour-long discussion with Coppola.
and then a half-hour discussion with Keanu Reeves about that accent. So look forward to that.
Oh, we love Keanu, but that's a kind of crazy choice. Yeah. So...
Well, thanks, gents, for your time today. Everybody, please go check out the DEFA Fairy Tale set. And on that note, we will see you in the month of April for our next announcements.
Thank you, everyone.
Do you love movies? So do I. What's up, y'all? It's KB, and I love movies. Inviting you to listen to The Conversation, a film podcast where passion meets perspective and opinion. From the old school to the new, I invite a guest on to discuss the movies that thrill us, challenge us, break our hearts, or even blow our minds. There's always new episodes dropping wherever you get your podcasts. So join the conversation. We don't just watch movies. We love talking about them too. The Conversation with KB Loves Movies, a part of Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hello, this is Aaron West. I am the author of the A24 New Wave. In this book, I look at A24's output and I make the argument that we are in a new wave movement right now. A24 plays a major role. This book has a supplemental podcast where each episode is a brief conversation about an A24 related topic, whether an actor, director, or even a genre. As I continue research for the book and conduct interviews, I expect to record podcast episodes with people involved with the company. You can find the podcast at cinejourneys.com or wherever you find podcasts. and we are proud to be members of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Thank you for listening. To hear more shows from the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, please select the link in the description